We've got a question: how much salt do you need as an athlete? We have the sports supplement industry is $1 billion industry. What's the ingredients here? This is Gatorade. It's all the same stuff. Powerade, Gatorade, SIS. It's all the same. Cheap to make, lightweight, shippable, expensive, consumable product, which makes people bank. Ingredients: sugar, sucrose, glucose, cheap. Food acids, 330, 331, so citric acids, cheap. We've got monopotassium phosphate, cheap. Sodium chloride, salt, cheap. Flavour, cheap. Calcium silicate, 552, colour, 102, cheap, cheap, cheap. And this is like almost cocaine markup, man. Alright, what is it? It tastes good. I use it occasionally just for flavouring. But it's just cheap product that I get it on sale, I get it cheap. But these people out there, they're thinking, oh man, how much? I need salt. You need salt, but nobody cramps in a race because they didn't have enough salt in the race. That's just not possible. And a bit about my background. Oh, did you study sports science? Do you have a degree, a PhD? None of that stuff means anything in the real world. And I know it because I've competed against many sports scientists in races and marathons, on bike trips or whatever, and they're on the side of the road cramping. And I'm like, I remember one time I had this debate with this guy in Gold Coast, Queensland, 2010. He was on the side of the road cramping in a race. Actually, it was after the race. He couldn't even hardly get off his bike. And I'm like, dude, how's that PhD doing for you now? You know? And it was all a bit of banter, but I was just like, man, like, you know, these people are so smart but so dumb. All right, you don't cramp because you didn't have enough salt. You cramp primarily you didn't drink enough water during the event or the days preceding, and two, another reason you cramp is you didn't have enough carbohydrate that day or days preceding, you know, it's not because of your salt intake. I've done the experiment where I ate no added salt for how many years was it? Maybe 2 years or so. No added salt, so no soy sauce, no sodic sea salt, nothing on my food. I was eating just raw, uncooked food, plants only. So no seaweed even. I cut the seaweed out, like full on, and I never got a single cramp. You know, how's my performance? It was okay. It wasn't as good as it is now, with extra carbohydrate, refined carbs. So salt, I'm never ever adding salt to my food. Going, oh, I need my salt, because I know you don't need much salt at all. The human body, if you look at the breast milk solution, you know, we don't need much salt at all, right? Minimal sodium. Sodium's actually pretty hard to get in nature. We don't need much. Sugar, though, very easy to get in nature. You got sugar cane, you got sweet fruit. If we lived in nature, we don't, obviously. But, you know, we are sucrose consumers. What bird is that? It's an interesting bird. It's like a honey eater, a sugar eater. Never heard that bird in my backyard before. I don't even know what species it is. Quite interesting. That's crazy. A new bird. That's pretty cool. Bit of a bird twitcher here. But yeah, it's nuts how people, you know, they just follow the mainstream. And so the person I was talking to this morning, he was into fasted training. His coach said do fasted training, and I said don't do that. That's stupid. So now he's carbing up more, and he wrote me. He said I've got 40 watts more power, and I'm just feeling amazing. You know, 40 watts. People use EPO to get an extra 40 watts. That's serious power increase. 40 watts, just from adding in a bit more carbs. You know, I said increase it even more. 100 grams of carbs per hour. You won't cramp. Drink enough water so you're peeing clear every two hours. You won't cramp. Impossible to cramp. All right. Spin cadence 90 to 100 to 80. You know what I mean? You won't cramp. Impossible to cramp. You know. Don't use stimulants like caffeine, methylphenidate, Adderall, modafinil, cocaine, you know, whatever, legal or illegal stimulants. You know, using these stimulants puts extra contraction on your muscle that you wouldn't normally get, all right? So if you're worried about cramping, avoid the stims, all right? You can add them in maybe afterwards or just experiment, but stimulants can cause cramping. That's another factor there as well. Another factor that can cause cramping is painkillers. Painkillers are very, very common. In the UFC, a painkiller is the most powerful drug you can take. You ever notice in the UFC or in kickboxing or whatever, you see them fighting each other, and they're doing the shin kicks, they're checking with their shins, and they're getting cracked and hit, and you're just thinking, how can they handle that? That's painkillers, strong painkillers. That's why the next day they can hardly walk. It's in the press conference, all stiff and all bunged up. That's because they're on so much painkillers in the fight. And painkillers can cause cramp. Painkillers are very, very popular in cycling, very, very popular in running. You have no pain. You can push your max effort and you can't feel nothing hardly. Powerful drug, painkillers, totally legal, totally dangerous as well. So if you get dehydrated and stuff, become addictive. But painkillers are used and abused in cycling, in running, in MMA, UFC fighting. In most sports, painkillers are used and abused, and most of them are totally legal. Imagine that. But again, so that can cause cramp as well. Okay, so all these little things can cause cramp. Your coach won't tell you this. You won't learn this at university, or you may or may not. Depends on how good your professor is. But this is just real talk here. This is real talk. This is why I have ridden across Australia solo, unsupported, with no stims and no added salt in 2005 December on a mountain bike. In December, around Christmas time, the hottest time out there. It was some days it was like over 40 degrees Celsius. Biggest day I did was 270k on the mountain bike. No support, solo, right? All on fruits and water. That's all I ate. From the Byron Bay, I actually had a few little nutcrackers there, from flaxseed crackers on the first day. A friend made some for me. And then the rest of the time, I think it took me about 15 days on fruit and water. Zero cramps. Yeah, no worries. In extreme heat. No cramping up. Now, be like, oh, you weren't racing though, you weren't pushing that big watt, so you're not going to cramp. That's true, but there's plenty of people out there who cramp and they're doing minimal watts, okay? But that was extreme conditions, man. Extreme conditions. That was so hot. And all those big months I've done in January 2013, 2014, where I was like, racing against people and we're going hard, training with the Pro World Tour teams and doing like 200Ks of Team Sky, up and down the hills. Zero cramps. And I wasn't adding sodium to my foods or whatever. I was just eating my normal amount of sodium, 1, 2, 3 grams a day. Water, man. Water and sugar. Water and sugar. A dehydrated muscle is a cramped muscle. Sodium doesn't hydrate you, If it did, you could drink salt water. What happens if you drink salt water? Too much, If you drink a liter of salt water, you're in some serious issues there, because we don't need much salt, all right? Do we need a no sodium diet's best? We can't really eat a no sodium diet unless you just ate white sugar, because everything has sodium in it to some degree. If it's a whole plant fruit, it has sodium in it and enough sodium. I have found that adding in extra sodium hasn't been of real benefit. I've also found that eating a zero added sodium diet also hasn't any real benefit at all. I would say having 1 to 3 grams, to give numbers, 1 to 3 grams of sodium a day to help you get in more carbohydrate, more soy sauce on your rice, more rice I should say, white rice ideally, just digest better, less phytic acid, just better power in your legs, better digestion there. White rice is the ultimate food, the ultimate starch. Nothing beats white rice for weight loss, for energy, for digestion, for taste, for price, for ease of cooking, for availability. White rice is like the king of starches. Second would be corn, and the king of fruits would be ripe bananas, dates. They would be the 2 best fruits you can get for power, for weight loss, for performance, mental, physical, and for perfect digestion. So that's the deal there. Sodium, 1 to 3 grams a day. That's pretty much all you're going to need. Experiment with it. Experiment with that, if you find you need 5 grams, okay, do that. But I haven't really found many athletes that need that. What you're going to find is you will have less water retention, all right? So you'll weigh less. And for most athletes out there, if you can weigh 1 or 2 or 3 kilos less and still have performance, not be dehydrated, not be undercarb, but have, just excess weight you didn't need to carry because you're chugging down so much salt, now you've got to hold more water, and it's just water to dilute the pollution you're putting in. Too much sodium can kill you. So you don't need much sodium at all, and your body will just, if you haven't. Here's the thing with sodium, the amazing thing with sodium. If you're eating too much sodium, your body's really good at excreting it. All right, so you'll just have the cake on the skin, and your skin all crusty. That's good, man. Like, your body is getting rid of it. It doesn't need to have. Don't be. Oh, I've got salt on my skin. I need to eat some salty crisps. You don't at all. Do the experiment. Right? Do the experiment in the off season. Play with it, having no added sodium on your rides, etc. You'll get enough from your food. And I'll dare say your performance will increase because your weight will go down a little bit. And it won't be valuable weight you've lost. It'll be, because if you dehydrate, you lose weight. If you run out of carbohydrate, you lose weight. But your performance goes down because you've lost valuable weight, right? You've lost the good stuff. But excess sodium retention doesn't give you any benefit as a runner or a cyclist. If you're a sumo wrestler, it helps. If you're a bouncer, it helps because it's just extra mass. If you're a wrestler, heavyweight, extra mass, it's good for you. But as a runner and cyclist, extra mass is dead weight. It's like disc brakes on a road bike. What's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point? It's like having 1,800 gram wheels versus 1,200 gram wheels. It's like, what's the point? Can you still perform really well with 1,800 gram wheels? Yes. Can you still perform really, really well with extra few kilos of sodium retention? Yes. I'm just saying, in a marginal gains world, you don't need to add sodium to your drinks. You just don't. But do the experiment. Use your power meter and do the experiment. Power meter don't lie. I will find your watts per kilo goes up if you have, 1 to 3 grams of salt a day. That will be your best bet there. But try it out. Do the experiment. Get back to me on that one. How much salt do you need? I would say 1 to 3 grams a day. Anything more than that, I'm going to say is overkill. Based on my personal experience of decades of dietary experimentation with coaching thousands of athletes out there, I would say that no added sodium isn't necessary, and I would also say that adding in more sodium isn't necessary. And that goes for the most extreme conditions. I've ran marathons in Thailand and experimented with and where I added the sodium, and I've found that what you get from your normal diet, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, have your soy sauce on your rice, that's always going to be enough. Excess sodium isn't going to be beneficial to you. It is a dangerous mineral in excess, so you don't need much of it. Unlike sugar, where your body just has an endless desire for that, sodium is there's definitely a ceiling that you're going to do yourself some kidney damage, blood pressure issues. Again, if you've got low blood pressure, you're going to probably need a bit more sodium, aren't you? But again, why do you have low blood pressure? Because you're using too much stimulants, because you're using certain painkillers, because you're not eating enough carbohydrate. So you could add in more sodium, get your blood pressure up to a healthier range, but if you're still not getting enough carbs, your performance is shithouse, and your mood's shithouse. So your blood pressure might be better, and that's good, but your performance still sucks ass because you're not getting enough carbs in. So enough carbs, to give you the numbers. People say, just eat moderate amount, eat more, eat enough. What's enough? What's more? Give me some numbers, Durianrider. I would say at least 10 grams of carbs per kilo body weight per day. So if you weigh 50 kilos, that's at least 500 grams of carbs per day. You might need more than that. You might not be able to stomach. You might need maybe 400 because you're like, this is too much food. I can't do that. You can use refined sugar to get the 500. That's really good. Ease in digestion. Flat stomach in the morning. So 500 grams of carbs. That's about 25 large ripe spotty bananas. That's maybe 800 grams of dates. That's maybe rice-wise, uncooked dry weight. It's probably about 800 grams of dry weight rice to get about 500 grams of carbs, around abouts. So there you go, and then go from there. Sodium, 1 to 3 grams a day. For me, I get my sodium mostly from soy sauce, and I find that's fine. And I find it really, really easy to be super lean all year long. And just because I eat lower 1 to 3 grams, because low sodium, what does that even mean? High sodium, I eat high sodium. Like there's no context there. It's like push out more watts. Like how much watts? What do more cadence? Like how much cadence? Like give people numbers. So I find 1 to 3 grams is a magic for me, magic for most people who are around the 60 to 80 kilo mark. If you're morbidly obese and you got high blood pressure, 1 to 3 grams can be really good for you. I've found help you get your blood pressure down, because generally obese people, the sodium concentrations in their bodies, they've got a lot of sodium in there, and that can help get rid of that. So their blood pressure, I find, just goes back down to a healthy level really, really quickly on 1 to 3 grams a day. So people with dialysis, I've generally found no added sodium is best for them, because their kidneys are really, really, really impacted. But that's another video. But there you go. That's what I recommend. Less is more when it comes to sodium. 1 to 3 grams a day. Try that, and you'll notice that you're just a little bit leaner. Your muscle contraction is still perfect. Focus on the carb intake, get enough carbs. Keep your oil out of your diet, unless you're really, really emaciated, and add more oil in. Things like that. If you want more information, grab my ebooks at Durianrider.com. We're going a bit more depth there, a bit more guidelines. But that's the wrap there. How much sodium do you need? I'd say 1 to 3 grams covers most people in most situations. Extreme heat training. Even for the anorexics out there who eat, have low blood pressure, I generally find just if they up their carbs, so their muscle glycogen's better, their muscles fill out, they have better glow and better blood pressure. So adding in extra sodium for them, it's a bit of a band-aid. They don't need extra sodium, they need extra carbohydrate calories, so they can get up to that 2.5, 3.5, 4, 5,000 calories a day, and then their body just take care of that. Adding an extra sodium for an anorexic patient, in my experience, is a band-aid solution. It doesn't treat the cause. It's like, it's putting a little sticker over a leaking bucket. It's like, let's fix the bucket. All right, let's up the carbs. Let's get them to a 19, 20 BMI.